Hey folks, welcome back to Piasa Transport Fever 2. This is B59 and we're going to join Eliza today for the next stage of her ops review. She's going to travel from Memphis to Vicksburg, and before she does that though, she's going to conduct an ops review with the branch manager in Memphis and take a look at all of the operations in Memphis and up and down the Arkansas River. So we start here today at the cargo wharf in Memphis, and it's a pretty handy looking little wharf. It's got a number of drop-offs and pickups, pretty elegantly and efficiently aligned. This was a problem harbor at one point because there were a lot of boats that would stack up trying to get in and out, and waiting for boats that were already at the landings loading and unloading. So it's become a very busy place, and we're glad to see it running so well. So the first thing that Eliza takes a look at is just, how are deliveries going here in Memphis? And she brings up picture of the first we should probably select, let's see what our stops are. So we have two lines, a tools line and a fuel line, and the tools line comes down here, and this is the drop-off. When we open up the buildings here and take a look at what's getting supplied, what she sees is that these buildings on the other side of the river are currently not getting supplied. They need tools. The rest of the city looks like it is getting supplied from that drop-off, so that can probably stay there. But she's going to make a recommendation here that there needs to be another tools delivery line going to the other side of the river. That's the first item on her punch list. And while we're on, let's also then take a look at the fuel delivery and see what that looks like in terms of coverage. And it also looks good. It looks like all of the fuel needs in Memphis are getting met, or at least are covered by the drop-off. So when we take a look at the tools factory itself, what we see is it really isn't producing at full capacity. It has a pretty heavy load, but it's not getting all of the planks that it could use. It's only producing 229, which is pretty consistent with the supply that it's getting out of Cape Girardeau from this mill up here. If we look at this here and we look at consumers, we see Memphis is getting 257, and it could handle 240. But as she looks around, she doesn't see close by ready access for lumber, and particularly one that might get served by river transport. There's a possibility that she might get some out of here, but frankly, this tools factory in Vicksburg is probably going to need its own increase from these forests around here. There's also some over here, but again, not a good way to provide river transport. And we could maybe bring logs to here on the river and then put them on a train to go over here. And we may end up doing that, but for now, she doesn't see that as the short-term fix for this punch list. And so she's going to make her finding and then put this on the problems to solve list to take a look at in the future. She also wants to take a look at the other industry in Memphis, which is this Memphis food processing plant. And when she looks at it, she sees it's getting about 3/4 of the grain that it needs to operate at full production. And this, as she looks around, she sees that it's getting grain from here, and from here. could also potentially get grain from here, although not a really ideal river route. I guess we could run something here. Or we could also just bring a shunt up to here and drop it off there. Those are two options. She's going to leave it to the Memphis branch manager to figure out how he wants to deal with that. But she is going to recommend that at least one more farm get hooked up to that food processing plant. So that pretty much covers Memphis itself. She takes a look at the passenger ferry harbor, and it's looking pretty good. There's only 41 people waiting, and the lines here they've got 111 of 170 people on the line. That's the line up to St. Louis and Cape Girardeau, which is pretty good. And then on the line down to Vicksburg and Memphis, there is only one boat running there today, but it has 44 people on it, and also a pretty good number. So, her inclination is to not mess with that at the moment. And likewise with the bus service. There aren't any bus stops that are getting hung up here. And so it looks like all of that is in pretty good shape in Memphis. So then she heads down to the Arkansas River, and we see this little exchange here. It also seems to be able to mostly keep up. The passenger ferry that goes up the Arkansas River from Vicksburg is a bit on the heavy side. 85 passengers waiting to join. There are currently 2 boats on that line. We're going to keep an eye out on this line as we head up the river, and by the time we get to Tulsa, we can make a decision whether we need to add more boats to that line. She then heads up to Little Rock, and in Little Rock she checks the drop-offs again. We don't, let's see, here is our truck station here, the Little Rock Wharf Warehouse. It doesn't have any goods piling up, but let's see what it has in terms of coverage for the drop-offs. It looks like, let's see, are there different drop-offs? This drop-off here, is covering both the fuel and the tools. So let's see what it looks like in terms of actual coverage. It looks like it's not getting all the tools up here. Yeah. Some of these aren't getting served here and here. Fuel's not getting served everywhere up here. So it looks like our drop-off is not covering everything it needs to cover, and in order to make sure we're sending out the signals for the demand, she wants to optimize this line, and so she's going to recommend adding a second drop-off and repositioning the original one. So probably keep it for either tools or fuel, and then add a second one for either tools or fuel. She also sees, as she is looking at the city of Little Rock, that the bus line is pretty busy. There's 57 people waiting here, and quite a few waiting at the ferry bus stop as well. So she's going to recommend again that some more capacity be added to this bus line so that we don't have these backups. I mean, yeah, 57 is a lot of people to be waiting. And when she looks at the harbor, she also sees quite a few people waiting to go to go down to the Little Rock Exchange down here. And so, yeah, that's probably another indicator that we're going to need to take a closer look at this line and maybe add some more boats to this ferry line. She also takes a look at the brick plant here, and what she sees is that it's only getting about 3/4 of the stone it needs. So, so she's going to recommend that Yeah, we're only transporting about 70% of the stone from this quarry. So she's going to make a finding here that the Little Rock brick plant needs more stone, and she's going to recommend that they add capacity to the stone shunt so that we can bring this materials plant up to full capacity. So that's pretty much it in Little Rock. We're not providing any transport services today to this steel plant. And at the moment we don't intend to, because there's not really a strong need for any of the cities that could take deliveries of that by river transport, which we're still focusing on. So then she takes a look at the books and records for Fort Smith, and what she sees first of all again is that a lot of people waiting at the harbor for passenger ferry service. Further indications we need more capacity on that line. The bus service looks fine. We don't see people backing up waiting for the buses. But let's take a look at our deliveries. And we have 2 drop-offs, it looks like. One for bricks. And it looks like the bricks line is getting everything but one building. Might be possible. I think the problem is at the moment is that maybe if we put a street in here, that would take care of things. She's going to ask the branch manager to take a look at that and see if either putting a street in here or putting the street in and repositioning this existing line, or drop off rather, can get full coverage. I mean, one building isn't much to worry about, but we might as well fix that if we can. The other drop off here in Fort Smith is for food. And when we take a look at that, we see that we are getting full coverage, looking at the nooks and crannies. And so no action needs to be taken there. So then we head up the Arkansas to Tulsa, which is the last river stop on this run. But it is also the heart of a Tri-City area with Oakland City and Joplin and Tulsa all connected by this train and all connected by industry. So if we remind ourselves here, down in Joplin, we have a construction material plant making bricks, and we also have a farm. And this construction material plant is serving Tulsa, Fort Smith, and Joplin. Right now it is operating at, well, it's operating at full capacity with its current setup. If it was, if we could kick it up a little bit more to meet the full needs of Fort Smith and Joplin and Tulsa, that might help it. And actually, the very first thing that we could do is get the transport up, because what we're seeing here at the train station is that the bricks are just backed up, and this is why Tulsa and Fort Smith aren't getting the full measure of bricks that they are demanding. So what she's going to recommend here, first of all, is that this Joplin, Oklahoma City shunt is overloaded and that more capacity needs to be added to that line. And so she's going to put that on her punch list. And while she's down here in Joplin, she notes that the bus service here is also running quite full. There's people piling up at the bus stop for the train, and she sees there's only 2 stagecoaches on there today. So she's going to say, add more bus traffic. And, Joplin has grown quite a bit. This current bus stop doesn't quite reach all of the corners of Joplin. and it could probably benefit from an inner city service as well. So she's going to put that on her punch list as well when you're looking at these bus lines in Joplin. Add something to get out to the train station, but let's also look at creating an inner city line. So working our way back to Tulsa, we do see here in Tulsa that the harbor is full. There's 174 people. When the passenger ferry comes into the harbor, it's only going to be able to pick up 75 people. Or is it 85? But in any event, way less than 174. So that needs to be buffed. And we definitely need to add at least one more boat to this Arkansas River line. So she's going to put that on her punch list. Tulsa Harbor's full, and we need to add a boat to the ferry line. So then moving up to the Oklahoma City passenger train. Let's just head up here to Oklahoma City. It looks like there's quite a few people waiting. This train has been running full, 48 of 48, so it needs to have a capacity increase, and we can either do that by adding another train, or more likely just by increasing the size of this train. And so she's going to put that on her punch list as well. And while she's here, she can take a look at the food processing plant, and she can see it's also not operating at capacity. It's getting only 38% of the capacity from the Tulsa farm, which is over here, and only 87% of the Joplin farm. The Joplin farm we expect to increase once we increase the capacity of the shunt, the train shunt. But it looks like this separate shunt that supports the Tulsa farm is going to need to be modified as well. It could easily be doubled in size, and that's probably what we're going to have to do, because it currently has a rate of 90. It needs to get up to 200, and so it needs to be doubled in size, and then a little bit as well. Then finally, up here in the Tri-City area, we're going to look at the Tulsa Oil Refinery, and we are getting an anemic amount of oil. We have 2 oil wells nearby. We have this one, which isn't delivering anything at the moment. And then the established one, which we've had for quite a while, is only shipping 50% or 60% of its capacity. So she's going to put on her punch list that this Tulsa Oil Refinery needs more crude, and that we need to increase the capacity of the existing shunt, and then figure out how to bring fuel from this well as well. Whether that's by a really short train or just a ton of trucks, we don't know yet. And she's going to leave that to the branch manager to solve. Okay, so this is a pretty big punch list again. It's about the same size, similar to what she generated for the Ohio River. This looks like a lot easier punch list to satisfy. And so with that, she's pretty satisfied, gives good kudos to the Memphis branch manager, and then heads back to Memphis to catch a boat and head on down to the Vicksburg with her buddy Sam Clemens. So we rejoin Eliza and Samuel Clemens waiting here at the Memphis dock for the passenger service to pull up and take them down the river, continuing down the Mississippi. It's quite a sight. It looks like there's going to be a pretty full boat as well. We see the pilot up in the pilot house. The king of all that he observes, according to Samuel Clemens. the master who must be obeyed. Oh, you can't see individual names on the boats, and I regret that as we wait for this autosave. Once they get on the boat, you can't point your cursor at them and see who they are. But it looks like our friends Eliza and Samuel have made it on the boat. And they head down the Mississippi. Samuel's bragging to her about his early morning life and how he likes to get up in the morning, and he says to Eliza, I had myself called with 4 o'clock watch on this trip. Mornings, for one, cannot see too many summer sunrises on the Mississippi. They are enchanting. First, there is the eloquence of silence, for a deep hush broods everywhere. Next, there is the haunting sense of loneliness, isolation, remoteness from the worry and bustle of the world. The dawn creeps in stealthily. The solid walls of black forest soften to gray, and vast stretches of the river open up and reveal themselves. The water is glass smooth, gives off spectral little wreaths of white mist. There is not the faintest breath of wind, nor stir of leaf. The tranquility is profound and infinitely satisfying. Then a bird pipes up, another follows, and soon the pipings develop into a jubilant riot of music. You see none of the birds, you simply move through an atmosphere of song which seems to sing itself. When the light has become a little stronger, you have one of the fairest and softest pictures imaginable. You have the intense green of the massed and crowded foliage nearby. You see it paling shade by shade in front of you. Upon the next projecting cape a mile off or more, the tint has lightened to the tender young green of spring. The cape beyond that one has almost lost color, and the furthest one, miles away under the horizon, sleeps upon the water a mere dim vapor and hardly separable from the sky above it and about it. And all this stretch of river is like a mirror, and you have the shadowy reflections of the leafage and the curving shores and the receding capes pictured in it. Well, that is all beautiful, soft and rich and beautiful. And when the sun gets well up and distributes a pink flush here and a powder of gold yonder, and a purple haze will yield the best effect, you grant that you have seen something that is worth remembering. With that, folks, I'm going to leave you, and we'll rejoin you next time for an episode of Punching Out and Punching Through Eliza's Punch List. Thank you for joining me.